The stories shared on It Takes Balls are unique to the individual sharing. Always speak with your trusted medical provider for treatment options specific to you. Welcome back to It Takes Balls, presented by Testicular Cancer Awareness Foundation. I'm joined today by a member of our armed forces. We've got JD Heylman here. JD, thank you for being here.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
So you are a testicular cancer survivor. Tell me about your story.
I am. So I started having issues back in about 2018. Saw a urologist back in 2018, and they didn't really have any concerns. Didn't really know why I was having pain, but wasn't something related to cancer at the time. And it was actually I ended up going to Korea the next year. Had some more pain, off and on in my left testicle, and ended up going to see a Korean doctor. When you're overseas, a lot of times they don't have the facilities to be able to do all of the imaging and everything they need to do. So they'll send you off base, which they did. Went and saw a Korean doctor in 2019. Again, they didn't have any concerns about the cancer, and really wasn't until I got back to the States in 2020 and the pain was just really not going away and getting worse that I finally went and saw a urologist again, and got diagnosed. Pure seminoma. Had my orchiectomy in, I want to say August of 2021. Went on surveillance, as you do, every 3 months getting my scans. I think it was my first 3-month scan that they identified one of my lymph nodes was getting enlarged. I left para-aortic. So obviously that set off some alarm bells. We did a follow-up scan, I think the next month, and it was continuing to get bigger. And that's when they went ahead and scheduled me for my RPLND, which I had last year in May, I want to say. And when that came back, and that was seminoma, and that's when I started chemo. Did 4 rounds of EP. Ended in July of 2021, and here I am. So far, so good.
Well, that's great to hear. Take me back to Korea. I mean, when you're far away from your loved ones, I mean, what is it like to kind of have something strange going on with your body?
Yeah, it definitely wasn't. It wasn't ideal. It was one of those things where, you just kind of rely on what you're being told. And at the time, they did the imaging and there was nothing concerning. So I just kind of lived with it. And it really, honestly, even though she was, 2,000, however many miles away, my wife was the one who, when it wasn't getting any better, she told me to go back and get seen. And for whatever reason, I did not until I got back to the States in June of 2021. But she was she was my biggest advocate for helping me to go back and get seen, because if it's not getting any better, you really have to.
So you first started this, you said in 2018, you noticed something, then 2019 you were in South Korea. So was that was COVID an issue at all? Like when you were first going to the medical facilities there? I mean, was that?
No. So the COVID thing really didn't kick off till the end of my tour in Korea. I was supposed to do a 12-month tour over there, and because of COVID, they stopped everybody coming in and out, obviously for safety concerns. So I ended up being there an extra couple of months. But really the medical care that you receive over there, it wasn't really, at the time, COVID wasn't really a factor that, played into me getting seen or any of the things that were going on with me.
So you said when you came back, you didn't exactly go right to the doctor. Your wife kind of pushed you. Is that what you said?
Yeah, she did. Because again, I had gone to the doctor in 2018 and they didn't really have any concerns. I went back to the doctor in 2019 and again, they didn't really have any concerns. They had told me to follow up, but in my mind, which, looking back on it was really stupid, but in my mind, it was like, I'm going to go back and they're going to tell me it's nothing. And, we're going to press forward and I just have to kind of live with the pain. And she was really the one who was like, advocating for me that no, pain is not normal. And you need to go back and get seen. And, I'm thankful that she did that. Because honestly, if I wouldn't have gone back and got seen when I did, who knows what could have happened. So
Had you heard the C word at any point, like in your earlier visits, or had it not been a discussion until you finally got back to the U.S. and went?
No, it wasn't really a discussion earlier on. That was just kind of one of those things that, I don't know if I'm alone in thinking this, but I think the C word is one of those things that happens to other people. That's not me, and that's never going to happen to me. You kind of have that sense of invincibility, if you will. So it really wasn't at the forefront of my mind until the urologist here in Arizona came back. And I mean, it was like a week. I went and saw him, and a week later I had my orchiectomy, because when he saw, whatever growth was in there, he immediately scheduled me for surgery. So it was kind of really like a whirlwind, but up until that point, it wasn't even something that had entered my mind at all.
Yeah. So, I mean, what was that like when you first heard it? Cause you have children, right?
I do. Yeah. I have 3 boys. Yeah.
So what kind of emotions what does that bring how old were your boys when you were diagnosed?
They were, what is it? Oh boy, here we go. Pop quiz. They were 14, 13, and 11.
Oh, wow. So they knew like something was going on, like when you were starting treatment.
Yeah. Once I actually had my surgery and, was sat down and talked to them about it, they had kind of known, especially my oldest. He knew, all these doctor's appointments can't be for nothing. So, he was kind of in tune with it. But yeah, I mean, it was really, I guess shock would be really the word. I didn't really even have time to process what was happening. I mean, like I said, it was a week between seeing the urologist and then being in surgery and then getting the pathology reports back that it was seminoma. And it was, I didn't even really, thankfully, my wife, my biggest advocate, was there, because I didn't know what questions to ask. I didn't know, I really had no direction about what to do. It's not one of those things they prep you for. So it was really, it was shocking. It was, yeah, I don't even know how to describe it. I mean, I'm sure anybody who's been through it knows, but you go from being normal one day to, a week later, you have all these other concerns that, and nobody ever tells you what questions to ask or any of that. So it was rough.
Yeah. And it's interesting. You're the first guy I've talked to who's had children old enough to kind of know what was going on. So, I mean, having seen you gone through the whole treatment, is that something that they are now living with fear that it could happen to them? How are they handling that kind of aspect?
Yeah, they definitely do. They've seen it, through my treatment, through my surgeries, through all of it, they really, they didn't flinch. I mean, I'm sure they internally, and I know internally they had problems, and, emotionally it was tough to deal with. But my oldest son ended up being a student of the year for the year that I was in cancer at his middle school, because they knew what was going on, and his attitude really never changed. He showed up at school, did what he had to do, had a positive attitude, even with everything that was going on. And now here we are, I'm almost 1 year post. They're very in tune with my follow-up schedule and all of these things that I have to do. But our mantra the whole time was, hey, we got to take this one day at a time, because there's really nothing else you can do, when you're going through it, especially when you have kids that are that old. So that's kind of what we've adopted as our mantra, is one day at a time. They still have concerns, obviously, just like I do, but we've slogged through it.
Yeah. I want to ask you about your, kind of your vulnerability in front of them to kind of, because chemo makes you weak and surgeries, you're laying down, you can't do anything. I mean, how did that make you feel with them watching?
Oh man. Yeah, it was not, again, goes without saying, wasn't really an ideal situation. I honestly tried to keep it as far away from them as I could. When I was going through treatment, you're so weak and tired. So I just basically stayed back in our bedroom, especially on the really down days and the days that I was feeling sick. Just kind of stayed back there and tried to keep it away from them as much as possible. In the in-between weeks when I was feeling okay, I'd get up and I'd go and, hang out with them as much as I could. But it was a lot of laying around the house in a weakened state and really just trying to keep that away from them. And it honestly, it sucked because that was right after they moved here, right? So they're trying to adapt to a new place, new high school, new everything. And then they had that right on top of it. And like my oldest son got into airsoft when we got here that summer and was really keen on, trying to get me out there to play with him. And that was not on the docket, obviously, when I was going through chemo. So it's tough to watch them go through stuff that I normally, participate in and have to have them do it without me because I just couldn't do it.
Yeah. All right. Let's jump back into your treatment. So you had your orchiectomy and then you said you were on surveillance for a little while.
Yeah, I was on surveillance for I had my orchiectomy in August of 2020. And then I was on probably about 6 months before they identified that my left para-aortic lymph node was enlarged to the point that we had to go in and do the RPLND.
Do you remember what your pathology was on your orchiectomy?
It was pure seminoma.
Okay.
So none of the teratoma. That was one of the things that, in retrospect, at the time, you don't really know what questions to ask. You just see seminoma on the sheet of paper, on the pathology report. But, going back through it now, knowing what I know now, that there are so many different types of testicular cancer that you can have. Would have been a question I asked at the time. In fact, I crack my oncologist up all the time because I come at them now with questions that I probably should have had at the time, but it took me time to really wrap my mind around everything and not being wrapped up in that whirlwind. So, but yeah, it was a pure seminoma for the orchiectomy. Yeah.
So, okay. So you had your RPLND 6 months ish after your orchiectomy. So tell me about your RPLND. Was it laparoscopic, open? Where'd you have it done?
It was laparoscopic. I had it done at the Banner Hospital here in Tucson by a really, really good, really talented urologist. It was all done with, via machine. As far as I know, I just kind of, remember seeing the machine in there before they knocked me out. So, all laparoscopic. They ended up taking 3 or 4 of the surrounding lymph nodes out of there too when he went in because he could tell that something just wasn't right with those ones as well. So he took my left para-aortic, but he also took a couple more of them and sent those off for pathology. And then obviously, those all came back positive.
So, okay. So this hospital you went to, you called it the Banner Hospital?
It is Banner Healthcare is it's one of the bigger providers here in Arizona. So, and they have a really big hospital here in Tucson. It's the Banner North. Used to be University Medical Center, but now it's the Banner Hospital.
Okay, I didn't know if it was related at all to like your military affiliation or anything.
No, so this is here at where I'm stationed at Davis-Monthan. They have basically what they call an MTF, just a treatment facility. Most of those off base because they don't have, they just don't have everything that they need to treat everybody. So they'll give you referrals off base. And this was definitely something that needed a referral to a specialist.
Yeah. So, okay. So you had your RPLND laparoscopic. What was the recovery like for the laparoscopic RPLND?
That one actually wasn't too bad. I mean, it was 2 weeks of just kind of laying around. I mean, a lot of this was just laying around, which can get frustrating when you're, 37 and you want to be up and around. But it was a lot of laying around. The stomach, obviously the stomach issues afterwards, not being able to flex your stomach or move around. You find out real quick how much you need your core to do really anything. But it wasn't too bad, I don't think, the recovery from that.
Yeah. I will not say your occupation. I'll let you say it if you want to, but it looks like you might do something that requires some heavy lifting. So, I mean, were you back to work soon after or?
So basically what happened, yes, I'm in aircraft maintenance, have been for 16 years. It's pretty much all I've known my adult life. And a lot of that does require physical movement of various kinds. But at the time that I had my orchiectomy and then it came back, I had been on leave, and my supervision was pretty much tracking what was going on with me. And a credit to them, they were incredible through that whole process. I basically went on a medical leave status for the duration of that summer. So I went and had my orchiectomy, my RPLND. And when the results of that came back and they were positive and, we knew I had to go through the chemo, they basically said, hey, take the time you need, and let us know, when and if you're ready to come back.
And you're back to work now with any issues or no issues?
No real issues. Like I said, I'm 16 years in. I'm fortunate enough now it's more of a paper pushing job, which is, hey, that's, that's fine with me, right? It keeps me out of the heat. These guys that are out there working in the aircraft, they're the real, those are the real heroes when it comes to making sure the aircraft get fixed and get in the air. But my only issue that I've had so far that's been something somewhat challenging is the neuropathy, because not being able to feel your hands and your feet, can be pretty challenging when you're trying to use your hands or, walk around the flight line and do all the various things that I have to do.
Yeah. So we'll talk more about side effects, but tell me about your chemo. Did you have any notable fevers or anything, or side effects or nausea during chemo that stuck out?
Wow. So yes, cycle 1 and 2 were not bad. As not bad as chemotherapy can be. I was able to eat, and really, I think I was able to eat mostly through the whole 4 rounds, but really specifically the first 2 rounds. My wife had bought a cookbook. I can't remember the name of it now. It's the cancer fighters cookbook. And she was, in the kitchen making me all kinds of nutritious meals, because you never know. One day to the next, you never know what you're gonna be able to eat. So, but yeah, I was really able to eat. Didn't really have any issues. The 3rd round is where the rubber started meeting the road. I was hospitalized, once during my 3rd round for dehydration. I was on my way to treatment. I think it was the last day of my week on of treatment for the 3rd round. And I started fainting in the car. And this is, you're talking June, July, in Tucson, Arizona, which is, it's 105 degrees outside. So, just the heat and not being able to drink, because that was one of my biggest challenges, as the chemicals build up.
Yeah.
Everything tastes like metal. So hadn't been doing what I should have been doing as far as hydrating, and started fainting and passing out. And I got admitted to the hospital. I think my blood pressure was like 90/50 or something crazy.
Jeez.
It was, that was not fun. Gave everybody a kind of a scare there. But other than that, that bump in the road, and then, not couple of times getting really nauseous and, throwing up. Wasn't really, I don't know, looking back now, maybe I'm suppressing some of these memories, but it wasn't the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with you. When you were fainting, was that when you were driving, or was your wife driving you to treatment?
No, it was actually my dad was driving me to treatment. Yeah. I could not drive.
Yeah.
And really, I don't know, if I'm again alone in this one, but being in the car towards the end there, that was for lack of a better word, that was a trigger, because I would get so nauseous in the car and have to pull over and throw up. And that was bad. So
those side effects that you mentioned, tell me more about those and how they affect you.
Yeah. So the biggest one I think so far has been the neuropathy. It was pretty bad in the beginning, towards the end of my chemo. It's gradually gotten better. And I guess I'm from talking to my oncologist, it can last up to 2 years. So that's something to keep an eye on, but it's gradually gotten better. But that was not being able to feel your hands and feet is just the weirdest feeling, I think. That was definitely the worst one. There's some foods that I still can't eat. I have that anticipatory nausea when I drive by the oncologist office or have to go in there, or even think about some of the foods that I got sick eating during chemo. Yeah, that's the real deal. I don't know. I really didn't know about that in the beginning, but yeah, that sucks because they tell you not to eat your favorite foods. I didn't really listen. So I ate a couple of my favorite foods and I don't think I'll ever be able to eat them again. So
no.
Yeah, that just makes you nauseous even thinking about it. But some ringing in the ears, which, for an aircraft maintainer that's not uncommon. So I've been dealing with that for a while. Really just the neuropathy has been the worst so far.
Yeah, you mentioned those like triggers. There's a specific like Tide detergent that I find my brain like thinks that it smells like my pee did when I was in chemo, and it makes me nauseous.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's the littlest things. I don't know what it is can really make you go into a nausea spell. It's really weird.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about survivorship. So you're how far into your survivorship now? You were treated in, you said summer of last year, 2020.
That's correct. Summer of last year. Yeah.
Okay. So you're coming up on a year.
Yep. July 31st will be my 1 year anniversary, as it were.
Awesome. That's awesome. So what is your, have you had scanxiety, and tell me about all that?
Oh my goodness. Yes. That is another one of those things that I was told about. But you really have to go through it to understand what it's like. But yeah, that scanxiety is real. Probably, 2, 3, up to a week before, you have to go in. That depending on the results, it's going to be what it's going to be, but that's a hard thing to process, I think. And, probably from your experience too, one of the hardest things to do is to stop assuming that the worst is going to happen. Mm-hmm. So when you're 3-4 days prior to a scan, it's really, your brain, which you have to turn off sometimes, but your brain starts to tell you, that it's going to be bad when, the numbers tell us that, most of the time it's not going to be bad. There's a lot, 90+% of people who go through testicular cancer survive. Right. So, but it's hard to tell your brain that when you are, 3 days prior to a scan, and then waiting for the results of the scan can be the worst.
Yeah. Yeah. I just had I had another ultrasound because I was having a little bit of pain in my remaining, and, they noted some things that I guess getting some opinions of doctors through TCAF on the board, they said are not to worry about, but I guess because of the history, they're like really making note of these things. And like, I don't know if where you're at, you have the My Chart or some kind of thing like that, like an app.
I don't know.
So we have like this thing called My Chart, and your results come up like right after the radiologist signs it. So you can read it before your doctor even sees it. And that can be brutal.
Okay. So now I know I'm tracking now. Yeah. We have, they contract out the scans that I do to a different company, and that company, that you'll get the results within like 24 hours.
Yeah.
But then obviously, it can be a week or two before you see your oncologist. Yeah. And so, I know what you're talking about. That was my first scan. I remember, I don't know why I remember this, but my first scan post chemo, they noted a 10 millimeter focal area. in the area of my left para-aortic lymph node. And of course you go, what is that?
Yeah.
Is that good? Is that bad? So then, waiting for that call back from the oncologist, I hear you. It can be brutal.
So we talked a little bit about your kids. Is this something that they are actively like performing their self-exams? Is that something that you guys talk about?
So we've talked about it a little bit, that you really have to, and my whole, I guess my takeaway from all of this is you have to be your biggest advocate for your own healthcare, and you have to, take care of your body. And when things are different, when things, show up that shouldn't be there, you have to advocate for yourself and go and get them checked. And part of that is obviously doing self-exams. So they're teenagers, so that's not really something they want to hear from dad right now, about how to do a self-exam, but hopefully they'll, like other things with teenagers, hopefully they'll take some away from it and listen and really, take that forward as they get older. What about
like some of your coworkers who I assume are younger ish, male, female? Right. I'm going to guess predominantly male, but is this something that, you're talking about with them?
Yeah. I mean, they're aware. It's my peers, right, are the ones who have really asked questions. I make myself available to anybody who wants to talk about it and anybody who wants to, know more about any of it. Your subordinates, right there, that's something, again, just like, trying to teach your teenage boys how to do a self-exam. From a supervisor, sometimes that's not really something that's not a subject they want to broach. Yeah. All you can really do is make yourself available, if they have questions. One of the crazy things for me was going back to work. I went back to work in September, I want to say. So I ended my chemo in July and was back in September. And in January, February of this year, I think, I had a coworker who had an experience with TC, and yeah, I mean, it's out there. So to your point, I mean, us that have been through it and know what to look for and know, the experience, have to be really the advocates for making sure everybody else kind of checks yourself and checks themselves and advocates for themselves. Yeah. I think, I don't know the numbers, but I know that testicular cancer is one of those cancers that is on the rise. And they're, not really sure why from what I understand. I try to keep up on some of the, the medical news. There's some of those reports that I read that, I can only understand every other word, and we, things like that. But it seems like it's one of those things that's on the rise. So, again, that's my biggest thing is coming out of this is to advocate for yourself, and know the signs and know what to do when you see something that's wrong.
Yeah. I'm going to probably have to look this up and maybe edit it out if I'm wrong, but I believe it's on the rise in the Hispanic community.
Oh, really?
I believe so. I'll have to double check that. And I don't want to put out incorrect information.
Right. Right.
I noticed you're wearing the Survivor wristband. Is that something that you wear all the time, or is that just special for the pod?
No, I wear this everywhere. It's just one of those things, again, that kind of ties all of us who have been through it together, to show that, hey, we're here still. And between that and, I still wear my Livestrong bracelet because, obviously what's funny is, people that are over, 30, people that are my age, when they see the Livestrong bracelet, they go, wait a minute, whoa, like, what is this, 2003 again, but it's just one of those things to show solidarity with everybody that's been through it.
Do you find that it's a conversation starter? Like if you're at a restaurant and the waiter or waitress is like, hey, and then you can tell them give them your elevator pitch about TC?
Yeah. Every once in a while. Yeah. It gives you the opportunity to give you, like you said, your elevator pitch, your 30 seconds or less. How do you compartmentalize everything that we've been through in 30 seconds or less? But somehow you find a way to do it. But yeah, it definitely does. Like I said, especially with the older generation that remembers just how popular those Livestrong bracelets were. And then obviously the TCAF survive, when they see the survivor, they have questions. So it's cool.
Yeah. We've kind of you've given advice already, but I mean, do you have any like advice for somebody who is just now starting down this road or has just finished their treatment and now they don't know where to go from here?
So for people who are just starting, my big thing is, because it's a whirlwind, just like I said. And I don't think I'm alone in the experience of being told you're diagnosed. You know, most of us are in our 20s and 30s, sometimes a little younger. And then what does that mean, right? What does that mean to be a cancer patient, to go through cancer treatment? So my big thing is to take a deep breath and do the research to ask the questions, to get the answers that you need. Because again, I'll say it again, I crack my oncologist up because, I ask questions now. I only asked him probably 3 weeks ago, or at my last appointment, why the 4x EP versus the 3x BEP, right? Because when you see people's experiences, most people go through the 3x, the bleomycin and the etoposide and the cisplatin. There's 4x EP is just as effective, but why did you, for me, did you, do the 4x EP? Mm-hmm. And his answer was pretty simple. The bleomycin can have negative effects on your lungs, maybe. And he didn't want to put me through that. So he was looking out for me, but that's probably a question that I should have asked, when this whole thing started going on. So for people who are just starting to go through it, that's my big thing, is to take a deep breath and try and gather up information and ask the questions that you need to get the answers you need. And then in survivorship, my experience with it so far is it's all about training your mind to, like I said, stop assuming the worst, to, know the facts about, all of the things that come along with chemotherapy treatment. Right. And because it can be pretty scary, but know the facts, know that you're not alone, and really just take it a day at a time.
Yeah. Great advice. Great advice. Thank you so much. Do you have any doctors that you want to shout out you're in Tucson?
I am.
Anybody in that region who's listening, maybe they are looking for the top doc?
Dr. Bajaj, for TC, his name is Ong Bajaj. He's been amazing. And his team, he has a nurse practitioner who's amazing. John Lynn McGettigan, she's been fantastic. And really all the nurses and everybody at Arizona Oncology, they've really, I don't know where I'd be without them, obviously. So they've been the best.
Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on that I didn't ask about?
No, honestly, I think that's it. I think we hit it all.
Cool. JD, thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for your service.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. It's my pleasure.
For more information and resources for your testicular cancer journey, visit testicularcancerawarenessfoundation.org. You can also follow us on social media at Testis Cancer. We're on Facebook at Testicular Cancer Awareness Foundation.